Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to What It Takes Radio. And we continue with the things that I was made for and perhaps named about Stanley Jones. Yes, we are in the business now of helping raise up a group of talented young men and women to be living encores of the Stanley Jones legacy. And we continue with that story today. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Some people have said, you always say ladies and gentlemen. Do you ever say gentlemen and ladies? Very rarely. Ladies first. I'm quite old-fashioned. However, I just did because I had pointed out that the program I was doing was primarily for men, particularly young men. But certainly there will be some ladies, some women who will listen in, who might be a part of it, even out of curiosity, but perhaps it will be appropriate for them. So I actually said gentlemen and ladies, but then I asked the classic question, what is a gentleman? And I even said, what is a Christian gentleman all about? I'm on a campaign to kind of restore that whole idea of what I say is oftentimes the ultimate point of a legacy. I have had the privilege in the last couple of years to actually be asked to give just a word about three of my friends who had passed away. And part of my talk was very simple. I simply said, my friend Richard was the essence of a Christian gentleman. And I can't think of anything that might be more complimentary to a man. Yeah, well, what is a gentleman? What is a Christian gentleman? What is a Jesus gentleman? Was Jesus a gentleman? He had a bit of a temper, you know. He got a little bit angry. But what would be a Jesus gentleman? Well, then I also say, welcome friends. Now, what I'm also going to tell you is that when you accumulate friends, there's also a chance that you may accumulate some foes. Because the very thing that makes you a friend to some will perhaps make you a foe to others. And so my new campaign where I said this is not just about Stanley Jones, but it is much more not just about him, but it is about my feelings that one of our calls should be to raise up a whole group of young men and women of Indian ethnicity and Indian descent to be the true living encores of the Stanley Jones legacy and legend, and to be able not only to bring that back to India in new and powerful ways using the media, but also to minister to the millions of Indians in the diaspora, and particularly in the United States, here where I live, particularly in the very community where I live, where actually one of the largest Hindu temples is being built, and there are hundreds, thousands of people of Indian descent, most of them doing very well in this research triangle, raising families, holding responsible positions, and they should realize that one of the top Jesus Christian evangelists had committed his life to making the man, Jesus, someone who had walked and understood Jesus of the Indian road. Well, there are people who have told me that they're not quite sure that's what they want to do. They think there might be other things that would help perpetuate the Stanley Jones legacy. So they're not quite sure that they're on board with the fact that I want to raise up living Indian encores and to give time, energy, and money to that effort. And I understand that they have other thoughts or priorities. But I just simply want you to know that that is my continuing idea. And I'm hoping that with your help and Ann Matthews Eunice of the E. Stanley Jones Foundation, we have both committed ourselves. We've had a good life. We've lived a long life. Ann, of course, is the person, the living encore, the granddaughter of Stanley Jones, who will be, obviously, one of the leaders of the movement. But she, like me, and like many of you, we're in the fourth quarter of life, and we are hoping that we can encourage new, younger men and women to not only understand the wisdom, insight, and truth of Stanley Jones, but to make it a part of their own life and their own families, and not necessarily to do it, quote, full time, whatever that means, but that they still live in the marketplace like an entrepreneur, like Stanley Jones was, who basically made his living as a speaker and a publisher, a writer. He didn't have to go out and beg for money or seek donations. He was able to do it by his own, as some would say, if you're a writer, the blood, sweat, and tears that are required to be a world-class book publisher. Yeah, that's what he did, and he did it well. He is a living example for all of us, no matter what our vocation or profession. And so we are going to continue to do just that. And that's what I'm asking us right now. Put away your prejudice in some ways, but we believe that this is a vital thing to do. And I've had some experience in knowing how to go out and do, quote, some mission work, but we're going to reach out to many people which we don't know, but who are very much in the Indian community, and particularly in the Indian Christian community, who they could be the ones, a new generation for the Stanley Jones legacy. And instead of maybe spending money on ourselves, on our own vacations or retreats or books or things for us, there are a number of you who could then use that revenue, that resource, to help us raise up living encores. I would love that we would be able to sponsor conferences and retreats on Stanley Jones, that we could invite them to, that we would help meet the expenses for that conference or that retreat, so they could begin to learn that they, in their 30s and their 40s and in their careers, can become living encores of Stanley Jones. And I'm hoping that a number of you would make that known. Just recently, I read a wonderful article, and it actually quoted, and I haven't gotten permission to use the names, and because of that I won't, but a man of distinction, a writer, says that a certain gentleman was his mentor. And he talks about what he learned from his mentor. But I also know that the mentor, a true, significant man of God, was mentored by Stanley Jones. So he says, my mentor was and is, he's still alive, but he was also mentored by Stanley Jones. And if you are in that category, and many of you might be, you were mentored by Stanley Jones, maybe personally, and many of you were mentored by him, even though you weren't mentored by him personally, in his writings, in his speaking, and in his influence. I know a number of you have said to me, is Stanley Jones changed my life. And I can say the same thing. Stanley Jones changed my ministry. Stanley Jones changed me in his influence with me and to me. Well, I'm just going to simply say, I'm hoping a number of you will begin to reach out to me, or particularly to Ann at the estanleyjonesfoundation.org, estanleyjonesfoundation.org, and simply say, we would like to become and this is the term I'm going to use, we would like to become a founding friend of the Stanley Jones Radio School Raising Up Living Encores. And the organizations are fully tax deductible in the United States of America, so you can reach out to me at stan@witradio.net, stan@witradio.net. Reach out to Ann at the eaststanleyjonesfoundation.org, and we would love for you to become founding friends. We're not going to bug you or do anything like that. We'd just like to have your name and your indication of support in some way. And someone would said to me, well, Stan, what would be a good one? I say, well, maybe $100. That's a little bit on the edge, but most of you can afford that. That would be a nice way to say, here in 26, in this world full of transformations, where many things are happening, in which God has given us a world of opportunities, but the world has had many, many crises, and the need for the wisdom, insight, and truth of Stanley Jones and the people who are living out his life, and the people who are living out, as he said, lives fully surrendered to Jesus. Jones was a Jesus man. That's right. And that's what we are about. Very much so. And so I'm going to encourage you that we would be very, very grateful if you would reach out to us and say that you would like to help us begin to make this thing happen and be a part of raising up living encores, and continue to be living encores yourself. Just keep doing that, doing it well. Many of you are very much in the tradition of, as he went out as a Methodist minister, and the Methodist Church has its ups and downs like everything else, but the one thing that brings us all together is the fact that Charles Wesley, yeah, the Wesley guys, oh, for 1,000 tongues to sing, hey, that tradition of the methodical way of doing evangelism, that is a part. So if you are living any way in that wonderful tradition, what they would call the Wesleyan tradition, please make sure you understand that you perhaps have a little bit of a influence, and can have an influence in preserving the Stanley Jones Foundation, who began as a Methodist missionary, found out later on that he had to frame himself not as a Methodist or maybe even as a, quote, Christian, but found out he had to frame himself as a follower of Jesus and the Jesus of the Indian Road. And in that powerful slogan, that powerful way of describing himself, he transformed through the Spirit of God, that there were people who joined the Jesus kingdom and surrendered their lives fully to him so that they could be fully alive now and forever. That's the goal. Please reach out to us. I would be grateful. All the best and blessings to you. I hope to hear from a number of you in the near future. And please feel free to ask any question, strong, tough, hard. We'll be glad to have the conversation about this project. And we would love your recommendations. We think we know who the leader might be, but we would love to hear from some of you who'd say, I know this young man, this young couple, this young woman, and I know the work they do, and I know their faith. They would be wonderful people in this cadre, this core of Indian living encores. we'd love to meet them, love to talk to them, love to see if we can help them. And we'd be grateful for that kind of help and participation. All the best blessings to us all. Lord, bless this world. Jesus, you're Lord. But we also understand that you are the leader and that we want to follow you. And so lead us in the right ways right now as we deal with the world and deal with the situations that are before us, so that your kingdom will truly come right now on earth as it is in heaven. Thank you. Till next time. Bye for now.